Welcome back, grade 12s. It's important to take a recess, but after this break, I think we can now push stronger so that we start to prepare ourselves well. Like I said, God bless those who keep their lights alight while others are asleep. We can't get everything for free. We need to take these efforts, combine them with our own efforts, and make sure that we strive to put our province on the planet and make sure that we go for position 1 again. Let's go back to the rural settlement now. Under rural settlement, like I said, from now onward, you'll be seeing that we'll be repeating ourselves. So rural settlements, they are small. Yes, it's very true. You find them to be very small, but very important, they are what? They are unifunctional. Like I said, unifunctional will mean they've got one uni for one, they will have one function. And these functions will make them rural, which are your farmstead, like we have said, your hamlet, like we have said, and your village. All these three are rural, and what makes them even more rural is because you find them that they are all our now primary activities. Primary activities will include your what? Your farming, we have talked about it, your fishing, we have talked of your forestry, and also your mining. That's why I'm saying if we combine our efforts, my learners, we are going far. Now, let's now go to the land use in rural settlements. How are we then using our land from time to time in our rural areas? We say the largest land use in South Africa is our what? The largest land use is our agriculture, where we started to say where we'll be planting approximately 12.1 of the land is used for commercial, take note of it, and your what? And your subsistence farming. Now on these two, I want us to define our commercial and subsistence farming. Our commercial and our subsistence farming. We say a commercial farmer is where a farmer, commercial farmer is where a farmer produces for what? For market. He produces for market to make what? To make profit. A farmer produces for market to make profit is a commercial farmer. They are plowing what? They are plowing using large piece of land. They use a large piece of land. That's why we are seeing them producing for market, and ultimately they make a lot of profit. Except the commercial farmer, you've got a subsistence farmer. You've got a subsistence farmer. A subsistence farmer produces for what? He produces for his own needs. He produces for his own needs. His needs includes what? He produces for a what? For a family. And in most cases, you find them using the small plots because they are only producing for their own families. Now we say a subsistence farmer produces for his own needs, for a family, while a commercial farmer farms on a large piece of land and produces for market or even just for profit. Now we say the large land use zones, like we have explained the land use zones, you also have your agriculture. They are using commercial farming, produces for market and profit. Subsistence farmer produces only for a family. Now we say subsistence farmer involves using what? Their own crops, breed and animals as source of food, and producing only for a what? For their own family. While you started to have now a what? A commercial farmer. Commercial farmer will now be producing for what? You'll be producing for market, and you'll be making a lot of profit. That is why we say the main aim at rural land use generates what? Income will mean your profit of the farmers. And commercial farming can either be very important, extensive or intensive farmers. Then we say a subsistence farmer produces only for a family, while a commercial farmer produces for what? For market. where he can start to generate income either as an extensive or an intensive farmer. Now you've got commercial farming can start to be divided into two. We said commercial produces for what? For profit. Now you can start to find that while he's producing for profit, we can even go further to say he can either be a stock farmer where he's using what? Animals. This will mean your cows, your chickens, your sheep, and even your pigs. But you also have a crop farmer. A crop farmer is the one who will now be using your what? You'll start to be using your maize, types of crops that you could get that will produce, cultivation on a piece of land, then for your maize, for your wheat, for your fruits that you get, and even for your own vegetables that you'll get in that area. Then we say he will then be your crop stock farmer. Now we have the mixture of the two, where they are either practicing, no, where they both practice stock farming and crop farming. And we call that farmer a mixed farmer, where it's a combination of stock farmer and also a stock farmer. It means while at the very same time you'll be producing some crops, at the very same time you'll be having some cattle that you'll be having on his farm. Then we say he is now a mixed farmer. Very important, I repeat. You divide your farming into two. Commercial farming, it's where you produce for market and you make income. Then a subsistence farmer produces for his own needs, only for the family. Now we say commercial farming can be stock for animals, or can be crop, where you use now different types of crops. Or he can start to have a mixture of the two, and we call him a mixed farmer. Now we can also have our own figures that we talk about rural settlement. Now, earlier today we talked about the pattern. And then we said every time where you started to have buildings close to one another, we talked of the pattern. Then we said where you started to have buildings close to one another, a pattern will be what? Will be nucleated. Nucleated. Or the pattern will be clustered. That's what we said this morning. That's why it's important that you drill your keywords. Then we said once you started to have buildings now that are far from each other, we say now the pattern is dispersed. Now you started to have a dispersed or an isolated. Isolated. They are far apart. Now a nucleated will start to say they are close to one another. Buildings will be close to each other. To each other. And then in an isolated or dispersed, you started to have buildings far apart. Far away from each other, far apart, far away from each other. If you compare this pattern and the pattern A and your pattern B, you'll start to see that these ones, they've got a lot of space in between, dispersed. Then the other one, they are nucleated, they are close to one another. And that's exactly where we are now going to say a settlement or a rural settlement pattern is how. That's where I want you to focus. A settlement will be nucleated. These are farmsteads are arranged how? Close to one another. Very important. Then we started to say from there you also have a what? A dispersed settlement. Once you've got to a dispersed pattern, we said settlements are how? They are far apart from one another. And they gave us an example to say if you check your keyword here, it means your buildings. Even this side, your key will mean your buildings. Now we say, give us the pattern maybe in paper 2. We say block A5. Then we said that your settlement pattern can either be a nucleated pattern or a settlement can be a dispersed pattern. Now they give you figures here in terms of figure 3.2, nucleated, like we said, close to one another. And then a dispersed, like we said, now they'll start to be far away from each other. Let's get to the advantages of a nucleated rural settlement and the disadvantage. I want you to take note of this, and it's very important. We say, in a nucleated settlement, what will be your own advantages and what will be your disadvantages. The advantage in a nucleated settlement is that there will be more interaction of people. Why are they interacting? Remember now, they will be close to one another. So because they are close to one another, it is easy for them to interact with one another because they are very close to each other. Then the second advantage, we say that the very same people, what can be, they can start to share what? Ideas. What makes them to share ideas easily? The very same ideas, because they are close to one another. Then we say the second point, they can share the cost of tools and even the machinery if they are farming together. And once they share the costs, it means they will be spending less money. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 households. Now, because they are close to one another, 5,000 or 6,000 shared between them. 6,000 rand, it will mean one will pop out 1,000 rand. But when you check these ones that are far apart from each other, it will force him to work his field. He must buy machinery, he must buy fertilizers, he must have the supply of water all by himself because they will be far away from each other. But at the very same time, as much as we have the advantages, you have the disadvantages. Because you are close to one another, there's no what? There's no privacy. You cannot start to have your own idea by yourself. You must always work as a community. There are many arguments as you have to agree always with a group of people that you are working with. And then they have to share what? They have to share the profit. Remember, they've produced the money or the production all by themselves. So they need to share the profit. And you cannot use tools when you want to. We must agree to say, now we want to farm area C. We must use what? Let's use your plowing fertilizers in terms of seeds. Let's use the following in terms of seeds. Let's use the following machinery. And let's use the next river that will be supplying this water. It means everything that we have to agree to do, it has to be a communal agreement. You have to agree on everything that you do. So it's also very key that we take note of it. Now let's check the dispersed settlement. That is all about your nucleated settlement. But now we check your dispersed settlement. Advantage of a dispersed settlement, opposite to your nucleated, is that there's a lot of privacy. A farmer can come up with his own ideas. A farmer can start to do what? A farmer can start to make his own decisions. A farmer has all the profit to himself. A farmer has a better use of what? Machinery and his own tools. It means a farmer is independent in a dispersed settlement. And the disadvantage of being in a dispersed settlement where houses are far apart from each other is that there is no interaction. You hardly get an interaction in those areas. Remember, some farmers are abandoning their farms because of nothing else but what? Safety. It's not as safe as when you live close to one another. And they have to take all the cost on their own shoulders. They have to make sure that they pay everything by themselves. And it is difficult to share ideas because you are on your own. It's very difficult to share your ideas. Now we say the disadvantage of a dispersed settlement, believe me, not enough interaction. You are alone, you are by yourself. It's not safe. Second one, it will tell you that it's not safe. The third one, you have to take all the cost by your shoulder, and you can hardly share ideas. And that will be basically it in terms of your advantages and your disadvantages in a nucleated settlement. Let's go to the reasons for the location of rural settlement. Why do we have these rural settlements located there? Why are they located in those areas? We say where a settlement occurs is referred to its what? Its location. Where you settle is your own location. we will discuss this in detail. Now, when we started, I defined a site. And I said a site, it's a piece of land, exact piece of ground that is occupied by what? That is occupied by a settlement. That's where we started. Piece of land occupied by a settlement. But we also go on to say, what is the situation that you get around that site? What is your own situation? No wonder we come to this explanation. To say you have this as your site, and the conditions that you get around you will mean your situation. Situation refers to the relation of your settlement in relation to its what? To its own environment. That's why people will start to visit other areas and say, hey, but the situation of that place is not good. Because he has now studied to see, but the surrounding that you get in this area, it's not good. The surrounding environment to your settlement, then it's not good. Then you talk of your situation. But the very same two concepts are key. They're very key to take note of them. Site of rural settlement. We say when you choose a site in a rural area, not everywhere, only when you choose a site in a rural area, what is it that you are looking for? If I'm a farmer and I wanted to choose a site, to say I want this piece of land in a what? In a rural area. What is it that I'm looking for? Let's check them. The first one, we say there must be water. Because I'm going to need water on day-to-day basis. I'm going to need water on day-to-day basis. We say there must be water. And there must also be arable, or what you call your fertile soil. The land must be very fertile. If I'm a stock farmer, then I must also make sure that there's enough pasturage, where the grazing land for my cattle, and I must make sure that there are building materials where I'm going to stay, so that everything can be super. Very important, last one, there must also be fuel or wood. There must be fuel or your wood that you get in that area, so that you can start to choose an area. So we say, when you choose a site in a rural settlement, you must make sure that there's availability of water, make sure that your land is fertile, make sure that there's pasturage, there's building material, and there's your fuel, such as your wood, because you'll now be in rural areas. And once you are in a rural area, then we use your fuel in a form of food. I'm repeating myself. Now we are coming back to the situation. That's why I say, hang on to your concepts, you'll never get lost. When choosing a situation for rural settlement, the following factors must be considered. When you choose a what? A situation. Where? You are choosing a situation, but check. Where are you choosing this situation? You are choosing a situation in a rural settlement. Make sure that you are above a flat line. That's a very important point. Make sure that you are on the north-facing slope. What reminds you here when you talk of the north-facing slope? It reminds you of your aspect on the thermal belt, where there are warmer temperatures. I want to repeat. Now, let's choose the two in terms of your what? Now you are choosing a site in terms of your situation. I want to emphasize the issue of the aspect. Now we say, every time when you've got an area in a form of a valley, and you are in the southern hemisphere, you are in a what? Southern you are in a southern hemisphere. So if you are in the southern hemisphere, you must always choose the north-facing slope. And this refers to what? This refers to nothing else but what you call an aspect. Let an old man write it somewhere here. Now we are talking of the situation. Aspect means what? Aspect. Aspect means the direction in which WHI in which the slope faces. Very important, my learners. Aspect, the direction in which the slope faces. Once you started to have your sun directly, this question normally always comes up, even under your physical geography. It will always come. We say the sun now must be perpendicular. The sun must be direct. So if you wanted to plow crops somewhere here, not necessarily in a valley, but you must consider that the crops will need sunlight for the process of what? You know better in life science, your photosynthesis process. So all what you'll be planting here will be needing. So you must make sure that you choose the slope that is facing where? That is facing north. In which hemisphere? In the southern hemisphere. They can give you this diagram and ask you, in which hemisphere? And you must check your direction. Your slope, this slope must face your north, and your sun must face almost towards your south part of it. North facing slope, they are warmer. Why are they warmer? It's because they are directed to the sun. The north facing slope are good for cultivation because they receive what? They receive direct sun rays for your crops. Then we say that always under the situation, consider that the north facing slope has what? Has warmer temperatures. Now you know why the temperatures are warmer there. They are warmer because you are facing the sun. The other point we say, avoid staying on the flat plane. Now I'll take you a little bit back to say, remember we have under geomorphology, we have two profiles. That's why we don't have to forget. Then we say, when you start from the source to the what? To the mouth, what do you call this? This will be your longitudinal what? Profile. Longitudinal profile from the source to the mouth. The one that has your upper course, your middle course, and the lower course. Upper course, which is V-shape, middle course, which is U-shape, and the almost wide open valley, which is the lower course. But besides this longitudinal profile, you have this one that we are talking about now. They say if you choose a situation in rural areas, avoid to stay on the flat plane. Because immediately when your river starts to overflow, especially during heavy rainfall seasons, once it starts to overflow, you are going to be in danger of floods. Your area will be flooded. Also this side, your area will be flooded. That is why we call this area what? A flat plain. A flat plain. So in a rural area, when you choose the situation, make sure that you stay where it is warm. Huh? If it's your stock, if it's your crop, they must be perpendicular. The crops especially, they must be perpendicular to the sun. But second part, avoid to stay on the flat plane. This area is what we call your flat plane. So it means once you have done the cross profile, this is a cross profile. Cross profile meaning from what? From one bank to another. From one bank to another. That's why we call this geography made easy. We leave no stone unturned. From one bank to the other. Bank, we don't mean FNB and Standard Bank. We mean this area. This is your bank. Your flat plane, and this one's also your flat plane. From one bank, from this side to this side. That's why they also call it your transverse profile or your cross profile. From one, so avoid staying on the flat plane, because if a river overflows, then this area will be covered with floods. So when you choose a situation, consider the aspect. Aspect means what? The direction in which the slope faces, and also move away from the flat plane. So you can't guess the flat plane. You must go back and remember your cross profile, where we'll now start to go in detail at a later stage about the two. Right, that will be the task that I think you must do. Then your activities there, very important, my learners, very important. I want you to focus on this. This is a topic that normally covers your 8 marks, and I think it's where we'll end for the day. Rural-urban migration, very key. More marks on this topic, so we must go in detail. We say as countries develop, urban areas also expand. More and more people move from rural areas. Oh, now they are coming where? They are coming now to towns or to what? To cities. I know you are mastering it. Just want to make sure that I leave no stone unturned. Now we say the movement of people from rural areas, they move from where? From rural areas. And where are they going? They are now going to where? To urban areas. And what do you call that? From rural to urban, you call it rural-urban migration. In this section, you'll focus on your push factors, very key. And equally enough, we'll also focus on our pull factors. Now let's check the push. What pushes people to move from rural to urban? Number one, they are being pushed by natural disasters. That will include your drought, your floods, and even greater impact on the very same rural areas. The second one will be lack of facilities in rural areas. It will also force people. Facilities will include what? Your schools, you find them to be very few. Your universities, your hospitals, you find them to be very few. You'll also find that there's a lack of entertainment. Your clinics and your hospital will fall under your health. Then you'll find that also you've got less facilities in terms of your electricity. It also comes here. What forces people to move? Lack of services. Lack of what? Lack of services. Lack of services will include your water, your electricity, and your transport. And your transport. Then we say some people are moving because of lack of jobs. It's a fact. You can't stay where you are jobless. Lack of jobs. And then another one is we say you don't have houses, so people will be living. And then also lack of recreational facilities together with your entertainment. Recreational facilities together with your entertainment will also be another factor that will be causing you to leave. And you also have poverty. That is a major cause also that will limit people's chances of improving. Now when we check them, we say you've got your poverty, that is a problem. You've got your entertainment, that is a problem. You've got shortage of houses. You don't have jobs. There are no services like water, electricity, and transport. And there are no schools. There are no clinics. And there's a lot of floods or drought. This becomes what? Your push. And you must listen to the questions because you normally rush to answer it. Push factors. Now, what will attract you to urban areas? What will pull you? It's because natural disasters have lesser impact. There's lesser impact because government provide more help on urban areas that are stricken. That's why we've got disaster management strategies always in urban areas. And then we said this, in rural areas there's a lack of facilities, but in urban areas there's what? There's more access to facilities. Definitely you'll come. And then lack of services, then in urban areas there's a lot of services that you'll get. In rural, there are no jobs. There are more jobs, at least in urban areas, but it's not everyone who gets to be employed because of skills for that matter. There are less houses in rural areas, but in urban areas, there's a lot of houses. Then Recreational facilities are fewer here, but in urban areas you find them more. We are heading towards Makufe now. That's why I always say to learners in Botshabelo, they must start Bokufe, Botshabelo Cultural Festival. They must not come to Bloemfontein every time. You can do it in Van Staden's and start your Fakufe, Van Staden's Cultural Festival. Then we say you've got also better standard of living that you get in urban areas than poverty that is striking in rural areas. My learners, Agenda 21. Strategies, turnaround strategies. What is it that can be done by the government? How can the government stop people from moving from rural to urban areas? 12 marks initially, but now it has been reduced under caps to 8 marks. This is your paragraph question. Turnaround strategies. How can we stop these people not to go to urban areas from rural areas? Now, what is it that we can do? The first thing is that before you can implement solution, it is important to do what? Consult with the people. Ask them what is it that they need. Solution should look at skills development and the development of the very same talent of the people. Now you must provide what? You must provide the basic needs. The government must start to put on availability of food, shelter in terms of housing, your clothing, your clean running water in rural areas. These must be satisfied before development can happen. The government must also come and people can also help in a non-governmental organization to improve services, your electricity, your roads. They must be improved in rural areas. Services like hospitals, schools, to encourage people to stay where? In their own rural areas. They must stay in their rural areas. They must not come to hospital in urban areas. When providing of these basic needs such as building roads, clinics, and the local part, I wanted to focus now on the infrastructure, improvement of your infrastructure. You must also improve your buildings, your roads, your clinics, your local labor, and train people so that they use their own resources and skills. We said farmers are moving to urban areas because they are scared. They die from time to time. We must improve also the food security. What do you mean by food security? When the country has access to food, when there is enough food in a country to meet the daily healthy lifestyle of people. Then we must also use better farming methods as a farmer. You must use your own better farming methods, like your contour plowing. Use your own tools, but very important, modified crops. Modified crops. You must also use your seeds that are genetically modified to be resistant to any pests. And then attract secondary activities also in rural areas. Make sure that they go there. Rural depopulation does not only affect what? Very important. This question, I think is it 2010 or 10 or 11 or 11 or 12. Impact of this movement of people that are moving from rural to urban areas. We say rural depopulation does not only affect rural areas, but also small towns. Many people are leaving small towns to improve or move to what? To big cities. Below are some basic ideas to consider when improving your small towns. What is it that you must improve? Improve your roads on your small towns. Upgrade your facilities on your small towns so that they don't move. And then town council must find ways to do what? To advertise their town. That's why we are hearing less about Maria Moroka Game Reserve, because it's not advertised. And then build old age homes. When you attract what? Tourists. you must advertise the town or attract people to come and live there. And then build old age homes for services, especially for retired people. Develop what? A holiday resort. And what will be the duty of that? To attract people for what? For weekends in those areas. They must go and chill there so that they enjoy themselves. This is very important concept that I've touched in terms of Agenda 21. People are moving from rural to urban areas, and they are being forced to look for services in urban areas. But there are also problems. That is the part that I must cover, the consequences in terms of the rural and the urban areas. Before I move to urban settlement, let's detail them here. Now we want to talk the consequences. If people are moving from rural to urban areas, there must be results. There must be results. There must be results. The consequences. Now these consequences will categorize them. You'll have your consequences in rural areas, and you'll also have your consequences where? In urban areas. Now we say in rural areas, if many people are moving from rural to urban areas, number one of the results is that we'll have old people left behind. Old people left behind. Our grannies will be left there. The second part is that your schools and even your shops, what will happen? They will close down. And then the third one, what will happen to the buildings? We say your buildings will be dilapidated. Dilapidated. Will start now to worn out. Then we say your old people will be left behind. Shops and schools will close down. Buildings will be ruined, or they will be dilapidated. Now, the very same people, once they've moved to urban areas, now you also have the consequences or the results. But in this instance, where you'll have them in urban areas. Number one, they'll be coming in numbers, and some of them will not be employed. You started to have crime. Crime can also be another factor also under your rural areas. People will start to lose lives. Then the second one in rural areas, you'll start to have a lot of pollution in those areas. And this pollution will be more where? In the informal settlements. Remember, it's not everyone will be accommodated in the houses that you get in urban areas. Now they will be developing their own squatter settlements, and you'll start to have a lot of pollution. In the very same informal settlements, there will be less services. So it's not every movement that you get from rural to urban areas that is blessed. Now you can start to have also these consequences where there's crime that is now becoming a problem. There's a lot of pollution. There's a lot of development of the informal settlements, and there will be a lot of disservice or less services that will get there. That's why you get a lot of pollution in those areas. These are also very key. The results in rural and the results in urban areas. And that will include to say, let's know that we've got rural-urban migration, movement from rural to urban areas. We've got your push factors and your pull factors, but ultimately there are consequences. The results that you get in rural areas and the urban areas. Then we go to Agenda 21, very key, where we say we must now improve our rural areas as much as we can. I think for today, we have covered much in terms of the rural settlement. When we get a chance, we'll now start the last part of our urban settlement sometime before you write your final examination to talk of your urban settlements. And that will be it for today, my children. My children, remember, I always say, God bless those who keep their lights alight while others are asleep. But very important, please let's not forget to say question 3 must come first, question 4 must also follow, and then you choose between your question 1 and your question 2, because physical geography has been a challenge for us over years, though we are striving to overcome it. But these 2 questions are always giving us marks. So we go for 3, we go for 4, and we choose between the 2. And settlement economic geography are easy, and we can score 150 out of 150. May you be blessed in your endeavors from today up until we meet next time. Thank you very much, and God bless those who keep their lights alight while others are asleep. No, I thank you. Bye-bye.